Hey, welcome to a new project. Today we're going to install Octoprint on Raspberry Pi 3. And we're going to do the basic configuration. Then I'm going to make another video with the specific configuration to add the printer that I'm the 3D printer that I'm using, and kind of go into that a little bit later. So that's going to be a different video. But this one we're going to actually install the software. And it shouldn't take too long. It should be pretty easy. But the printer that I'm using has some very specific steps to get installed, and I wanted to make sure that those are covered in a video on their own. Because most people wouldn't be interested in reading or hearing about those steps. Anyway, we're going to go to octoprint.org. We're going to go to the download button so you can get the latest version. And I'll put a link to octoprint.org down below. Right here we've got the latest version, which is version 0.16.0, and that is as of today, which is June 2nd, 2019. And the only thing they're saying is they discourage you from using the Raspberry Pi Zero W, probably the Raspberry Pi Zero, even though it's listed down here in available images. Mostly because of the bandwidth of the Wi-Fi, and the bandwidth being used is a little too much for those devices, and they are very simple devices. It's a $5 Raspberry Pi, and when you're talking about a $30, $35 device, cutting the price down to $5 kind of removes a lot of features that you need, and a lot of the performance aspects that you want to have available in your device. And the last thing in the world you want to do is have a print fail, because your device can't handle it. So I would say in these days, if you're going to get a new Raspberry Pi, get at least one of the 3Bs or the 3B pluses, and you should be in really good shape. Kind of looking forward to see what the new ones do, but we're neither here nor there. And we're going to follow the steps down below. I also wanted to touch on this. You can actually buy an Octoprint kit. And these are the three places that sell the kit. These two are not in my country, so currency would make no sense to me whether it was a good deal or not. This Raspberry Pi kit is in my country, to give you an estimation as to what it is, and it will include a Raspberry Pi 3 or a 3 Plus, including Wi-Fi, power supply, pre-flashed and configured SD card, and a case. And that is going to run you $139.98 regularly, but it's currently $129.98. And in my opinion, you're paying a lot more money for this. But if they donate this money, as they say, to the Octoprint project, well, then you're making a donation. You can get a Logitech camera for $26.09, direct wire power adapter, which I probably wouldn't use, and a 10-foot Ethernet cable for $339, and a power blocker for $449. Anyway, that's kind of steep. I mean, that case is nice, but, well, I don't think it's $129 nice. Because you can get a good case for a Raspberry Pi for about $10. You get the Raspberry Pi for $35. You get the SD card for like $10. Power cord there for like $5, $10, and you are nowhere near that price. And this software is not that complicated to install. I honestly think if you want to contribute, there's a donate button. Donate. Don't count on a third party to do it for you. Not knocking their service. I'm sure they're excellent. But if you live near a Micro Center or some sort like that, Fry's, you could probably just go get one and not have to wait for it to be shipped to you, and be up and running in about 10 minutes. So there are some different steps from this version from when we did it last year, so that's why I'm doing this video. First thing, we're going to download the image. This image is about 600 meg, I believe. It took like less than 2-3 minutes to download. It wasn't terribly long. I'm not going to show the download process, but I at least mentioned how long it took me to download this. I know that's subjective, but some people have been mentioning that that's important. So therefore, I will definitely do so. First step, unzip the image and install the contained image file to the SD card using Etcher. We're going to use Rufus. Do not at any point format the SD card from your operating system, even if prompted to do so. There will be a point where it usually comes up and says, drive is unreadable, do you want to format it? Click no, don't let it do it. That will break it, and you'll have to start over. Just use Etcher to flash the image file. That is enough. Okay, so we've got Rufus. Here's the file we downloaded. And as you can see, it is about 562 megs. So however long it would take you to download 562 meg, that's how long it's going to take you to download this file. So we're going to copy this over, and this is the extracted image file. So I just use 7-zip to extract here. Bam, there we go. We're going to put it on this 64 gig SD card I have, and we should be ready to go. Now, I had a problem doing this before, so I'm not sure if this is going to go through. Actually, I had to restart the video because I couldn't get the drive to recognize. So we will give it a minute and see what happens. Of course, I got a lot of stuff open, so, you know. But generally, you should not expect it to take this long to delete partitions. So this SD card may be damaged. And it looks like that might be the case. Unfortunately. We'll see if it will cancel it. Doesn't appear it's going to. So let's terminate Rufus. Just like a good console card. Blowing on it is sometimes the solution. Okay, that one came right up. So let's fire up Rufus again. This will be a smaller card, but we did not have the problem with it recognizing it that it did with the bigger card. Sometimes my adapter has trouble with 64 gig cards, so it just does not want to work today. Probably going to have to do this video tomorrow. Dang it. try one last thing. Let's just go ahead and delete the partition. I know, we're not supposed to do that, but I'm at a loss here as to what might be causing my problem other than my adapter being old and bad. Give it a sec here. Is there an option in Rufus to have it not delete partitions? I forget. Does not appear so. Alright, so now we're going to try it with this partition completely removed, so it should just write it. Okay? I don't know how it's... Now it's still going to try to delete a partition that doesn't exist, because there is no partition on this drive. Oh, there we go. We probably would have got there, but I just didn't have the patience to wait. Anyway, sorry for the delay. We are writing the image, and I'm going to do this in real time so you know about how long it should take you. Now, bearing in mind the problems that I'm having tonight, I really don't think it's going to take you as long as it's taken me, but I've had the Microsd card adapter for quite some time now, so I would not be surprised if it was worn out. Because it should be able to write faster than this. But I'm okay with this smaller 16 gig card. Does not take a lot of stuff, a lot of horsepower to run a Octoprint machine. At least not a lot of disk space. Unless you're saving recordings and whatnot, and most of those will be piped straight to the PC, so that won't be an issue. Okay, and now once this is done, we've got another step to do before we eject the card. So that's how we move to this next step, configuring Wi-Fi connection. So we have to edit this new file, whereas in the older version 15 it used the octopi-network text in a similar fashion. Now we have to use octopi WPA supplicant text. And we'll see what that file looks like, because I have not seen it yet. And worst case, we won't use Wi-Fi, and I'm not really sure I even want to. However, Some people only have Wi-Fi available, so that is definitely something they want to do. And I believe you had to do this when you set it up, otherwise you were going to have problems. So I don't know if they fixed that. Hopefully they have, but I know there was an issue, at least in one particular version, which I believe was 2 or 3, maybe 4 versions ago, where if you didn't edit this file, it disappeared after the first time it booted up, and it was hard to get Wi-Fi set up. So definitely a step you want to pay attention to. Almost done. Hopefully my wonky adapter wrote valid data to the disk. Otherwise, I will have to redo this. And I don't want to. Okay. So this is the message that you would get where you definitely want to hit cancel, because if not, it will format your disk and you'll have to start all over again. Just because Windows can't read the disk does not mean it needs to be formatted again. And now it's finalizing. And we are done. So now we open up Windows Explorer again. And I believe we need to eject the drive. And then reload it. We're done with Rufus. Okay, let's reload the drive. Let's see if it gives us the option to change it. And I'm not seeing it. So normally it would show up, I believe, with 2 partitions, but we're not able to see this one. No. Okay. No worries. Now we will move over to the actual configuration. However, be aware that if you can get the drive to show up, make sure that you use a program like Notepad++ or one of those. Otherwise, you will end up with additional characters in the file and it'll make it unreadable. So be aware of this step if you are setting up Wi-Fi, and we will not. But next step, we're going to actually circumnavigate using SSH to log into the Raspberry Pi. We're actually going to use a different method and sign in. So stay tuned for that. I'll be right back. Alright, so we're back. And what we're looking at here is the page that you get when you go to it through the web browser. Mine is currently using an IP address of 192.168.1.10, and we loaded it like right away as soon as it hit the router, so it hasn't actually started yet. So let's see if this is going to work. Yep, there we go. Now it is running. Now here's the thing. I was going to show you using my HD capture card, but that's not typically the view that people would get. And we did that last time. What I wanted you to see is what would happen if you actually just remoted into it using a web browser as soon as it booted up, and it just puts you right into the setup anyway, so not that big of a deal. So let's go through the settings, access control, and should assign a username. So we'll type that in here. Now I've got a username and password, and we're going to enable access control. Doubt we'll have a need for it, but we've got it anyway. So we want to enable anonymous usage tracking. Configure the connectivity check. Okay, we're going to test this host. It's going to ping Google basically and see whether it's working or not. It says the server is reachable. So we're going to tell it to enable the connectivity check. And we are going to allow it to enable plugin blacklist processing, so that if there's any issues with the plugin or whatnot, it won't allow them to load. So that's a good thing. We don't want it doing that. Okay, so we don't want to import a slicing profile, and this is dependent on the printer that you're using. I'm not going to set it up in this video. I'm actually going to make another video where we define a specific printer. You can watch that and model it off of yours, or if you have this particular model of printer that I'm using, you can use that one. They're relatively easy to figure out. You just need to know your bed size, and your parameters are pretty simple. So it's a rectangular, circular bed, where it should start, if the bed is heated or not, and the width, depth, and height of your volume, your build volume. So you could do axes, and talk about your hot end and what size it is and how many extruders you have in it. I'm going to leave this at the default for now. We're actually going to change it to a different one. In the next video, we'll actually go through the setup process and what you need to do to get that particular printer set up, because it's a little tricky, but we'll get there, and I'll do that then. So then we're going to click next, and it's going to say finish, and yada yada yada. Don't leave your printer unattended, so when it catches on fire, you can act like a sim and scream and wave your hands around. And do not make your printer available to everyone on the internet. Always good advice. And then finish. Okay, and there's an update available already. But, you know, we'll get that in a minute. So here is the standard parameters that Octoprint comes up with for connection: serial port auto, baud rate auto, printer profile default. This will be the printer that you defined. You could say whether you wanted to save the connection settings or auto connect on server startup. And then you can play around with the baud rate if your printer happens to have trouble connecting, which the one that I'm working with right now does. So we actually have to find the optimal baud rate to communicate with, and serial port is going to be auto, and it says our printer is offline because it is not currently connected to the Raspberry Pi. And this will be the file that it's printing, how long it's been going on, how much it's total going to take, print time left, and printed percentage. And you can actually select the files that are in here, and it will save the ones that you have done. So you can go back and reprint them if you wish, but you can print, pause, and cancel a job from here. Very handy to do. This gives you a nice graphical display of what exactly is going on with the temperature of the bed and the extruder, called the tool in the bed. Red is the tool temperature, which is going to be your extruder, and blue is going to be your bed temperature. I think you can actually change that in the settings for people who can't see red and blue, which is nice. And from here you can control it, and you can move your axis around. You can actually move your z-axis, your x and y axis. You can do certain things with the extruder, like extrude and retract the filament. You can set flow rates. You can actually change how much you want it to run. You can set the motors off, fan on, and go into the G-code viewer, and when you have something loaded up, you can see what it looks like. There's your terminal for typing in commands. Don't generally use this. And time-lapse. You could set time-lapse mode to on. And you could say, set it on the Z-change, which means the axis every time it moves up, it'll take a picture, which will be a very short time-lapse, but it'll be very interesting to watch. Or you can do timed, and I believe I had mine set on my other machines at 25-second snapshot interval with a time-lapse frame rate of 60 frames per second and time-lapse post-roll of 5. But I don't have the camera hooked up to the Raspberry Pi either, so that's not going to go right now. So we're going to leave that set to off. And it will save the finished time lapses here. If your Raspberry Pi does not have a very large SD card in it, you're definitely going to want to copy them off relatively soon after they show up. And that's the basics of the application. There's more you can do with it. There's actually these buttons up here. This one is the settings. This one will shut down, reboot, restart Octoprint, or restart Octoprint in safe mode. This actually is your user settings, but we'll look at some of what the settings menu looks like and touch on some of the important parts. These better define special cases for your connection, intervals and timeouts, firmware updates on printers that are available to do that, and behaviors as to what it needs to do when there's a firmware error, when it's pausing, when it's canceling. If your printer has pause capability and resume, that'll come into play. If it doesn't, then it won't do it so much. Here's your printer profiles. Again, we're using the defaults. We're going to define another printer in a separate video. This sets your temperature graph. This sets your color. Oop, I just removed that. Great. Well, I don't think it was anything important. So, send temperature fine adjustments automatically, so it will actually, this is for ABS, and I don't do ABS that often, especially not on this printer, so I'm not terribly worried about it. As long as we have PLA, we're good. We're going to enable this to have temperature fine adjustments, plus or minus on the printer. Terminal filters, this does send status messages to the printer. G-code scripts, this is where you can set it to do things before the printer starts, like draw a box or swipe the extruder nozzle on the print bed to clean it, which isn't a bad thing to do. I have a couple printers that require that because they do extrude a little bit before they start. They kind of leak. And since I switched to the E3DV6 on those printers, I have actually had to swipe the nozzle before it starts. It's pretty good practice on printers that have like a long string on them from starting up and heating up. I guess they're very efficient, so they heat up very quickly, and the printer doesn't have time to get the bed up to temperature, so it starts extruding a little bit, kind of stringy before it gets started. After the print job completes, you can have it run a command, and looking at the G-code commands gets you an idea of what exactly you can and can't have your printer do. Features, these are where you enable and disable features. There's your streams and webcasts. What's the streaming options now? Thought maybe that actually added like Twitch and stuff like that in there. There's your access control. You can add multiple users, so multiple users can have their own controls. However, since you're submitting jobs, it really doesn't matter because your API key is what controls it. Here is your visualizer size threshold, so it sets your file size on your G-code visualizer. There's your API. I'm going to roll a new one of those. So if you see that and you think you're going to copy it, it isn't going to work for you. Application keys. This would be plugins and such registering in the application. There is the server, what it does to restart the system, or do a shutdown. And this is the connectivity check. Same thing we set up at the beginning. This just goes into more depth. So it does bear going into once you have your system set up, to say, where's my log file? Where is it doing this? Where's it doing this? This will tell you everything. Now this is where we're going to spend a big part of our time. Software updates. There is an update available, so we're going to check for updates now. And we are definitely going to want to download an update. And here's the announcements. We can back up and restore configuration, which isn't bad because once you have your configuration set and it's running, you probably want to create a backup of it, which creates excluding the upload files and time lapses from the backup, because you probably don't want to back those up. You've probably already done what you're going to do with those, so you can get rid of them. So creating a backup, checking these two boxes will actually cement your backup in the simplest form possible, and then you can reload the system and reload the backup file from here by browsing for it, and that way you don't have to reload all these settings. It will automatically do it. Automatic usage, I don't care. You can just track my uses. Pi support, don't really worry about that, as I just leave it on. Action command prompt, never really use it. And Cura version. Cura engine 15.04 for the built-in slicer, which means that at this time you cannot run any version of Cura older than 15.04. Oh, no. This is the backwards one, so this is less than. So the Cura engine library for 15.04 and back are supported, and 15.06 and newer are not with this particular plugin. Not a big deal. You can run the newest version. It connects to Octoprint, uses your API, where is it, the API key, so you plug this in, and it actually allows you to just go ahead and connect up to it, so it's not a problem to send it from the new version of Cura. I've tried it, works fine, no issues. So that is setting up Octoprint. Like I said, I've got a particular printer that I just got in that I want to give some time and attention to, and I will do a video on setting that one up because that one is actually fairly tricky from what I understand it. I tried to set it up using this, and I had some difficulty, but I did some research and I found some different things that I want to try, and we're going to try them together. I'm also going to set the connection parameters for that, so there is going to be value in it if you have this particular printer and you're not sure what to do with it. There will be a video for that. This will be my 4th 3D printer that I have in my collection, so that works out pretty well. I've got the G3 or the A8, A10, the Creality 3D Mini, and the new one. I don't want to tell you what the new one is until I make the video, but we're going to go through Octoprint settings for that particular model and get the gotchas out of the way for that. See if we can get it talking, and if we can get it talking, then we are in business. But that is a video for another day. I have to do this update and some other things, so I'm going to go ahead and patch this video together. Apologize for this problems I had with the video with the SD card yesterday. I actually reloaded it on my laptop and it worked much better, but my laptop did not use the adapter, so I think maybe I might need to clean my adapter or take a look at it and make sure there's no dust inside of it or anything, because even a particle of dust can cause a problem. But I hope this helps you out. It was pretty simple. There wasn't much changed. I don't see any real big difference with it, but that's okay. Hey, it works, and I use this a lot for my other printers. Each of my printers has its own Raspberry Pi that controls it. So every time I buy a new 3D printer, I buy a new Raspberry Pi, hook it up, and there we go. And again, got a new printer, got a new Raspberry Pi. So we are in business for that, just have to get it communicating. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.